Green, aka the Science Machine, is a Shark Tank entrepreneur, educator, author, motivational speaker, and inventor. He is the founder and president of Science for Everyone, or SFE, and a co-founder of YoNo Clip. SFE is a 20-year-old Atlanta-based science and technology company committed to inspiring and increasing student interest and aptitude in science, technology, engineering, art, and math, better known as STEAM, across America and abroad. In pursuit of that mission, the jaw-dropping and mind-boggling interactive science experiments that Mr. Green presents have been featured on ABC, CBS, and Fox television networks. A passionate educator, Mr. Green serves as the featured presenter for Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, Six Flags Over Georgia, the Atlanta Braves, the Home Depot Backyard at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and the Steve and Marjorie Harvey Foundation. Additionally, Mr. Green is the only person in the world to present an interactive science show in a stadium, SunTrust Park, which is now Truist Park, as well as the creator of the Science Machine, the world's first STEAM-based cartoon, which is based on a real African American. YoNo Clip is a Georgia-based company that manufactures the YoNo Clip, a strong, portable, compact, and inexpensive device designed to keep your things close by, off the ground, and free from germs and dirt. Please help me welcome Michael Green, the Science Machine, to Powerful Teaching with Dr. Blades. Michael Green, welcome again to Powerful Teaching with Dr. Blades. Can you start by telling us how you became the Science Machine?
Wow, that was a long time ago. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on here and to share a little bit about my journey with you and your listeners or viewers rather. So thank you first and foremost. How did I become the Science Machine? Well, I graduated from Morehouse College, and my mom's best friend was the president of a science museum here in Atlanta called SciTrek. And so when I graduated, she kind of called her like, my baby need a job. And so she literally created a position for me at the museum. I was the speechwriter to the president. And it sounded so good. People would say to me, so what are you doing now? Oh, well, the speechwriter to the president. It's a real long title. But if you think about it, unless you're like the director of the Smithsonian or something like that, you're really not giving that many speeches as a science museum president, or at least not enough to justify someone's salary. And so I'd been at the museum for about 2 weeks, and I went downstairs to watch a field trip. A field trip had come to the museum to watch a science show. So I went downstairs to watch the science show, and I was sitting in a row with 5- and 6-year-olds. And I lost my mind. I literally turned into one of those 5- and 6-year-olds. Do that again. How'd you do that? And I ran upstairs to the president's office at the end of the show. And I said to her, I've got a great idea. We need to create a program that we take to the schools, because the only kids we touch are kids who come to the museum, and we're missing lots of kids. And most of the ones that we're missing look like us. She was a Black woman, and she looked at me and she said, I'm glad I thought of that. She said, why don't you do it? And I said, well, I just thought it was a good idea. I just thought I'd come up and add a little bit of value in the little bit of time that I've been here. And she said, well, now that I'm thinking about it, why don't you make it? And I said, me? And she said, yeah. I said, well, I just thought it was a good idea. And she said, well, I can definitely understand your position because you're probably so busy writing speeches. And,
now we know you really weren't, right?
which I really wasn't. And so I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And she really gave me all the leeway in the world to create a program that was mine. I wanted the program that I offered to be something different than what they offered at the museum. And so I went online and found a whole bunch of science experiments, and I figured if they made me go, whoa, they would make the kids go nuts. And I found a green afro wig in the closet of the museum and said, hey, Michael Green, the science machine. And that's really how it was born. And about maybe 3 or 4 years later, the museum subsequently closed. And I was working at Georgia Pacific at the time. And my wife said to me, the happiest you've ever been was when you were at the museum. You might want to think about that. And at this time, I got an opportunity to go work at Delta. And that just was probably the greatest job that I've ever had. This was pre 9/11. And, when you work at Delta, you get those flight benefits.
Absolutely, yes.
And growing up, my parents did a stint in the Peace Corps. And so we had the opportunity to live in some really foreign places to a lot of Americans. And when I say foreign, I just mean in terms of the level of poverty in that country. And I wanted my children to have the opportunity to realize that the way that they live is a lot different than the way that most people live, and to develop an appreciation for other cultures and learn to travel in other places and not look down on those people because they do things differently. Because I'm sure a lot of people from other countries come here and look at some of the things that we eat, and they're like, oh, and so I just wanted her to be more well-rounded, both my kids. And so that was really the reason I took the job at Delta. And then 9/11 hit. And it just wasn't fun going to work anymore. And that's when my wife and I kind of took that leap of faith to pursue science for everyone full time.
Wow, that is an incredible story. Now, I have to ask you, because anyone who's seen even a portion of your Science Machine shows will know that you are very animated.
Yeah.
Did you always have that animated personality before you started doing your science shows?
I did. It's funny because a lot of people in high school, when I ultimately created the character, they're like, I never knew that guy. But he was always there. I think he was probably a lot more concerned with what other people thought when he was younger.
Probably. Than
when he was older. And so, yeah, I think it's always been there. I've always had that ability to just, in a split second, to just, and a lot of times what I came to realize, teaching kids is if you can't hold their attention, then you can't teach them anything. And so a lot of times the zaniness and the green hair and the size 28 shoes and the airbrush lab coat, a lot of that is just to keep them fixated on me while I'm trying to implant that lesson.
Absolutely. So you've done your science machine shows in some pretty unique places. And you have some significant partnerships. So can you share some of your most memorable experiences?
Sure. Well, my most memorable experiences are always at Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. I'm the featured education presenter at Children's. My wife's little sister passed away from leukemia when she was 18. And that was about 15 years ago. And after she passed, my wife said to me, you should do shows at the hospital just as a way to give back, and it'll probably end up doing more for you than it does for the kids. And those are always the most memorable shows, to see some of the situations that the kids are dealing with, some of the kids literally fighting for their lives, and to be able to put a smile on their face for just a moment in time is priceless for me. And there's so many stories from Children's that just literally can bring you to tears. I remember one little girl, she was wheeled to the front of the room by her mom, and she had lost so much weight that they couldn't find a vein in her arms or legs, so they put her feeding tube in her cheek. And, so her mom kissed her, and the parents generally stand in the back of the room while I'm doing the show. And as soon as the show started, you just saw this smile light up on her daughter's face. Like it was the most beautiful thing. And it's literally like right in front of me, and I can feel her energy. And all of a sudden her mom just breaks down in the back of the room crying. And there's just tears just streaming down her eyes for 45 minutes. and I'm the only one who can see her, because she's in the back of the room. And so mentally, I'm like really messed up the whole show. Like, why is this lady crying? Her daughter's having the time of her life. And ultimately came to find out at the end of the show that because of where the feeding tube was placed, whenever her daughter would smile, it would press down on the nerve in her cheek. And the day that I came to the hospital to present the show was the first time that that mother had seen her daughter smile in 3 months. And she smiled for 45 minutes. And her mother said to me, it must have been the most painful thing for her, but because she was having so much fun, she didn't even realize, the pain she may have been experiencing. And she's like, I just want to say thank you. And so I was just like, oh my goodness, how do you respond to something like that? And to have those type of situations just happen over and over and over, where you're the person who's responsible for bringing that light into that child's life when they're at their, going through their toughest time ever. It's a blessing to be able to do that. And so that those are my most memorable shows. I presented at SunTrust Park, the former home of the Atlanta Braves, now Truist Park. I've actually presented in SunTrust Park twice. I'm the only person in the world who's ever presented a science show in a stadium. And so that was really cool. The Braves had like 4 camera people there, and they got those huge cameras, and they're like right in front of me, and the show's on the Jumbotron, and I'm just like, oh! And so no matter where you were sitting in the stadium, you could see, and they did this great partnership with all of the local school systems where the Braves played at noon. I'm sorry, my show was at 10, and then the Braves played at noon, and it was on like a Wednesday afternoon. And all of these schools bus their kids to the stadium, and you could see my show, stay for the Braves game, get a free lunch for $20.
Wow.
And so for some kids, they'd never even been to the stadium, so that was just an experience for them, in and of itself. And then, to have the opportunity to see the science show beforehand, hopefully that just kind of made it a little bit better. But yeah, that was definitely exciting. A couple more would be presenting with Steve Harvey. That was just phenomenal to be the featured education presenter at his mentoring boys camp, and to have him, we were actually having a conversation, and we had never met at this point. And I said to him, man, I really think the science machine is going to wow these kids. And he's like, who the hell is the science machine? And so, I was like, well, I'm the science. And so, he covered it up really well. But, it was a blessing. He made an Instagram post on his page, talking about the program. And, little things like that can do wonders for your business, and one of the things that's always in the forefront of my mind is so much of the success that I've had. Any venue that I could possibly name that, I'm so excited that I presented at, has always been the result of someone reaching down and lifting me up so that I could get put in that position, and it's amazing. There's so many people who have made phone calls on my behalf, and the next thing I know, this opportunity opened up. And so it's a blessing. I presented at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That was unbelievable. The Home Depot backyard, Six Flags over Georgia. So there's just lots of places. I wouldn't have imagined that the program would have grown to what it's become 20 years ago when I started it. But, God's plans are always bigger than ours. So
absolutely. When you can hold kids' attention to watch science at an amusement park, that's when you're really doing something.
It's funny you say that. That's exactly what my wife said to me. She said, if we were actually driving to Six Flags, and it was the first time that I'd ever done a show there. And she said, may I tell you something? And I said, sure. She said, we're going to an amusement park with roller coasters and, all kinds of rides. And I was like, yeah. She said, if you can get kids to stop, even if it's just for 5 minutes, and watch a science show, oh yeah, you got it. You got it. And literally we had 3 shows each day I was there, and every single show was packed. And it was literally just kids walking through the park, and they'd see the excitement on the stage. They'd see all the other kids there having fun. So they wanted to be a part of that. And I don't really think they knew it was an educational experience. But it turned out to be great. And I've been doing that for 3 years now. And, like I said, that opportunity also came as a result of someone calling the special events coordinator at Six Flags and saying, you've got to work with this guy, figure it out. And it's just a blessing.
Well, I have to say, just listening to you, and we're not even halfway through this interview yet, but I just have to stop and say it's such an honor to know you personally, because I was a fan on social media for a while.
It's good to know you too, Dr. Blades. And the big guy, Virgil, too.
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So turning back to the STEM conversation, and I also talked to another STEM educator about this. Oh, another friend of ours, LaQuanta Sumter.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You and I were
the drone lady.
Yes, the drone lady. We were discussing the various STEM disciplines: science, technology, engineering, and math. And then for those who take it a step further, for STEAM, we include the arts. And so the conversation she and I had is that most of the time when we talk about STEM, we're really just talking about the science, I feel. Science gets the most attention out of all of those disciplines, but you have really brought engineering into the forefront of the STEM conversation with your new invention, the YoNo clip.
YoNo!
You have to tell us what the YoNo clip is. Just tell us all about that.
The YoNo clip, actually, I have one right here. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see that?
I can see it.
The YoNo clip is compact. As you can see, it fits right in the palm of my hand. But it's a compact, portable, strong, and inexpensive device designed to keep your things close by, off the floor, and free from germs and dirt. And so it basically works based on suction cup technology. And you take the YoNo clip and you can attach it to any flat, non-porous surface. Doesn't matter whether it's vertical, horizontal, or diagonal. And then it has this lever right here. And when you pull the lever back like that, it actually increases the suction to whatever the YoNo clip is attached to. And the thing that's kind of interesting about the YoNo clip is 3 design firms actually told us that it would be impossible to create it. And we just kept going and going and going and going. And now it literally can hold about 15 pounds for about 2 hours. It's portable, so you're able to use it in so many different situations. It's versatile. I know in schools, kids aren't allowed to use the water fountains anymore, if it's not a virtual situation. And so kids don't really have access to water. So with the YoNo clip, you can take your YoNo clip, put it right on your desk or on the back of your chair, throw a couple of water bottles in your kid's book bag, and they stay hydrated all day. If you're at the restaurant, you can attach it right on the table or on the bottom of the table or on the side of the table. Women can hold their purse. If you're at the gym, you don't have to lay your gym bag down on the floor anymore. And if you think about all of the places that people walk throughout the course of the day and all the germs and dirt and bacteria that get built up on the soles of their shoes, no matter where they go, they track that bacteria and that germ, that those contaminants wherever they go. And when you lay your things down, especially in this COVID-19 era, where people are more cognizant of germs and dirt than they've ever been before, the YoNo clip provides a easy, inexpensive solution to not have to do that. And it's exciting. It's really unbelievable. I hope that it serves to inspire a lot of children to know that they can, reach their goals and dreams.
Michael, I want you to tell everyone, because I kind of watched the YoNo clip unfold from following you on social media. So tell everyone exactly when this process started and how you even came up with this idea in the first place.
Okay. And I actually can't take credit for coming up with the idea. It was actually my business partner, a gentleman by the name of Bob Mackey. And for those of you who know Bob, this won't sound foreign to you, but for those of you who don't, if you were to see Bob, he looks like he could probably lift up a house. I mean, he's just a really big guy and former bodybuilder, bench press 550 pounds. I mean, literally just a big guy. And I've known Bob for almost 15 years. We met, as a matter of fact, at a technology summit. And the organizer of the summit said to him, "This is Mike Green, introduce him," and just handed Bob my bio. And Bob subsequently introduced me. I later came to find out that he's the CEO of the North Georgia Boys and Girls Club, where he's over like 12 or 15 boys and girls clubs. And so subsequently, I started doing shows at his club. And February 26, 2020, Bob made a Facebook post that said, "I've got an idea for a gym invention." And it's funny looking back because most people had really, funny comments to make about his post, like "I got 5 on it," or whatever. And I was really the only person who replied in a serious manner. But that's only because I know Bob spends a good deal of his life in the gym. And if he's got a gym invention, I'm going to at least find out what it is. And so he called me and he said, "Mike, I went to the gym, and as soon as I walked in, there were all 5 or 6 women on these ellipticals, and they all had their gym bags and purses on the floor. And then I went to the back where the free weights are, and all the fellas had their gym bags on the floor. I started tripping over gym bags. Can we just get the gym bags off the floor?" And to be honest, I said, "That's the idea." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, let me call you back in 30 minutes. And so we go to the same gym, just in different parts of the city. Okay. And so when I went to my gym and walked in the front door, the situation that he described was exactly what I was seeing. And then I went to the back, and everybody's bags were on the floor. And I started thinking, this makes no sense because the gyms have lockers. Why is, what's going on? And what we came to realize is the locker room area is the only part of the gym without a camera. And so even if it had a camera, a woman's not going to leave her purse in there, and a lot of guys are just too cheap to buy a locker. So they'll just lay it on the floor. Yeah. And so I called Bob back and I said, "Man, I think you're onto something." And so Bob made a few sketches, and we were going back and forth through the sketches, and he sent it to a guy that he knows who owns a CAD design firm. And this is the 4th one, mind you, because the first 3 said it wasn't possible. And they said, "Let's do it." And they sent us back, basically the files to create the YoNo clip. We were 3D printing it at the time. And Bob and I went and got some 3D printers, and we learned how to 3D print. And it was a learning process along the way. But we ultimately created that first prototype, and it worked miserably. Oh my goodness. My wife has a purse, those mini purses that women carry. My wife has this like mini purse. It's like this big. It may weigh half a pound, and it couldn't hold it. It couldn't hold it on the wall.
Wow.
And so in the sense of it working, it was a complete failure. But in the sense of what it did for our mindset, to know that we now had something tangible in our hands that we could hold, and all we had to do was keep failing over and over and over and over and over, and it was going to get better and better and better with each failure, because our mindset wasn't, "Oh, that didn't work." It was, "Oh, we finally got something we can hold in our hands. Let's make it better." And so we went to work, and it's crazy. On March 21st, Bob sends me an email saying, "You're not going to believe what I just did." And I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "I just submitted our application to Shark Tank." And I was like, "You gotta be sure." And so at the time, we never ever thought something like that might be.
Hold on that on Shark Tank. We're going to talk about that later. I want to back up because you said, or maybe I didn't hear you correctly. You said February 20th of 2020, or another day in February, but you said 2020.
Yeah, it was actually February 26, 2020.
So it hasn't even been a whole year from conception to you are now you're holding a YoNo clip, showing it to us.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we also have packaging, which is a whole other game that we didn't know anything about, and so yeah, less than a year. We had our first prototype that we could hold in our hands in May.
Michael, so for the viewers who don't know, I am coming to you from Central America. I'm in Panama City, Panama. And prior to leaving the United States, I received my YoNo clips. All of my clips are clipped somewhere in our house in Powder Springs with things hanging on them. So I don't have any here in Panama with me. Michael, you're going to have to ship me some YoNo clips.
I owe you too.
I was born and raised in the South. You never put your purse on the floor, not because you're worried about dirt and germs, but because if you put your purse on the floor, according to my grandmother and all the grandmothers, you're going to be broke.
Absolutely.
So, I've never put my purse on the floor, but when I was traveling, the last time I was in the airport, I stopped by the restroom and I was mortified that a young lady in the stall next to me had her very expensive purse on the restroom floor.
Yeah. And that's really one of
when I go in the stall and there is no hook on the back of the door. Sometimes they just don't have it, or sometimes it's broken.
Yeah.
So me, I know how to balance my purse on my shoulder. It's not going on the floor. But a lot of people just don't think about it. They'll put their purse on the floor, but I was thinking, if she had a YoNo clip in her pocketbook, she could just stick it on the door, pop that lever out, hang that bag up, and be good.
It's so funny you say that. My wife was in a public restroom and it had the changing area for the baby. And there was a lady in there about to change her daughter's diaper. And my wife noticed she was about to place her purse on the diaper bench or whatever you call it. And my wife was like, hold on, don't do that. Use this. And she pulls out her YoNo clip. I was like, that's my girl. So she comes back out and she tells me about it. And I was like, that's awesome. And later on that night, the lady went on our website and bought one. So
I know she did. Yeah. And when I was a classroom teacher, I can remember trying to walk through as I'm teaching and tripping over kids' book bags because they wouldn't hang it on the back of the seat. So just imagine every desk in that classroom having a YoNo clip, and those kids can just come and hang up their backpacks, because especially young kids, they don't want to leave their backpack in a cubby in the back of the room. They want it next to them.
Absolutely.
So it's the perfect solution for so many situations.
Yeah, and it's funny because of my relationships with so many principals and teachers, and there's really been an understanding, that the YoNo clip would be a really useful tool. And it's so easy, a kid can use it. We just say press, pull, and hang. And it's literally that simple. There's only 3 moving parts. From the design aspect, it really is a wonder of design. Just 3 moving parts. It can hold more than 15 pounds, but we tell people 15 pounds for about 2 hours. And it's sexy. So yeah, it's a blessing. It's a blessing I never saw coming.
So you've already kind of talked about the process of developing the YoNo clip, and I heard you say each time that you failed, you were excited about that because you had accomplished at least one more thing that you hadn't done prior to that particular failure. So I want you to kind of expound upon that and talk about why it's so important for our youth to be engaged in this creative process, which actually, if we're in the classroom, we're going to call it the engineering design process. But why is it important to expose young people to that process early?
Well, really, I think one of the main reasons is so many of our young people, and I'm probably guilty of this to some degree, but we teach our kids how to respond when they're successful. And you think about kids literally practice their touchdown dances. You know what I mean?
Right.
And they go through all the mechanics in their mind of exactly what they're going to do when they meet success. But very rarely do we teach our kids how to respond to failure. And so I think that's one of the things that's so important about the engineering design process is, once you've identified that problem and you begin to brainstorm and then you come up with a design and then you build that prototype and you start testing, that testing process is really just that failing process. And if you've got that mindset to understand each time you fail, one more way that it won't work, you're moving forward. But if kids aren't conditioned to understand that failing is something that propels you forward as opposed to something that propels you backwards, I think that by teaching them, to be that engineer and to be creative and to test and invent and be curious at an early age helps create that mindset. And so I think that's one of the biggest benefits of teaching children at an early age to be inventive and to be creative and to know that it's not going to work the first time or the second or the third, and then talk to them about people who try to do things. And, Thomas Edison and 10,000 times before the light bulb was invented. And, Ray Kroc, went to the bank 104 times or whatever it was before he finally got the loan. And how you just teach those stories about people in situations that never gave up, even when people told them it wasn't possible. And I think when children hear that enough and they understand that and it gets part of their psyche and their system, going out and doing something and not quote unquote being successful won't be the end all be all.
There are a lot of inventions that have come to market within our lifetime, even within recent years, but normally we never know who the person is behind that invention. So I think it's really significant that the YoNo clip is here now, and you are already such a public figure that it really allows not just kids, but all of us to make that connection between here's this thing I can hold in my hand, and there's the guy who is partially responsible for that. Why is this so important?
I think a lot of times, especially when you're dealing with children, is they just need to have that belief factor. You think about Kamala, and all the little girls around the world who were inspired when she took her oath. You think about Barack, President Obama. And I think it just creates that belief that, because my whole life, my mom and dad, my grandparents told me, you can be anything that you want. You can be president of the United States. But I don't know if I really believe that because I didn't really have that person I could point to as a frame of reference. And so I think a lot of times just having that frame of reference gives you belief. And then that belief can give you enough momentum to at least get started. Because I think the thing that holds so many people back is just taking that very first step to get started, and I think about what would have happened if Bob had never sent in that application and just got started. And so, I would say that the YoNo clip kind of serves as a kind of like a beacon to kids that, no matter what your goals and dreams are, they're attainable and they're within reach. It's going to take some work, but you can achieve whatever you set your heart to.
I know a lot of the viewers watching want to know if you're teachers or your parents, you're wondering, so how can I get my students and my kids started to creating? And so Michael Green and I have collaborated to provide you with a free resource on the engineering design process, as well as a sample engineering design challenge that you can work with your students on either in the classroom or at home. So drop down in the description box and download that freebie. And we would love to get your feedback. You can come back to this video and post your comments once you've tried it out. Now is the part that I really have kind of been waiting for. I mean, everything about you is really interesting, but here's another biggie. You were recently featured on Shark Tank. You and your business partner, Bob Mackey, were recently featured on Shark Tank. And you told us approximately a month after you started engaging with creating the YoNo clip, Bob submitted the application.
Yes.
So from the point that he submitted the application, walk us through the moment that you walked into the tank.
It was the most surreal experience ever. We were standing on the edge of the carpet and heard the producer say 5 seconds. And I kind of dropped down on my knees and said a quick prayer and jumped back up. And Bob looked at me and said, "You ready, brother?" I said, "I'm ready, brother." He said, we were born for this. We're ready for this. And those doors opened up and we started walking down the carpet and I could just feel my heart just da-na-na-na-na-na-na. And then all of a sudden those second set of doors opened up and Mark Cuban, Barbara Corcoran, Mr. Wonderful, Lori Griner, and Damon John are staring right at us. And I'm just like, oh, here we go. And oh my goodness, it was so exciting. Man, it was, when I look back on it, sometimes I'll just be driving down the street and I'll literally find myself walking down the hallway and I'll have to be like, oh, you need to get focused. But I mean, it was so exciting. And so we went into the pitch. And one of the funniest things is, so we handed out the YoNo clips to each of the sharks. And Damon John took his YoNo clip and he put it on the table and he pulled back the lever for this, to increase the suction. And he tried to move it with his hand and it would not budge. And he was like, oh, damn. And he was like, oh, and it was funny because it caught him so off guard. And, I'll tell you this, the biggest thing that we were really worried about was, our company going into Shark Tank was only 2 months old. Mm-hmm. And so we knew that, how are we going to defend this $150,000 valuation, right, on this company that's only 2 months old? And everyone knows how Mr. Wonderful will actually literally rip into you about your valuation. And so Bob and I I can't tell you how many hours we spent trying to figure that piece out. And one of the things that was so crazy is really like the entire time that we were in the tank, Mr. Wonderful was in there like this. And he was just looking at the YoNo clip. And I was saying to myself, what is he doing? Because it was just like, why do you keep staring at it like that? And so we started going through the Q&A and we got to Mr. Wonderful. And ultimately we came to find out that he had invested in a product about 2 years ago with similar suction cup technology, but his product served a different purpose and it was a lot bigger. And so what we think he was doing was looking at it like, how in the world did they create this thing? It's so small, And so he didn't get in because of, his conflict there. And it was awesome because each shark that went out, there really wasn't a shark that went out and had something negative to say about the product.
And that's really incredible because normally that is not the case. I watch Shark Tank all the time. And I can say that I have seen products on there that I use, but I've never seen a person that I personally know on there.
Absolutely. And so that was a blessing looking back. And actually, as we were going through it, like whenever someone would go out, it was like, well, at least they didn't nail us, And so like Lori Griner, when she went out, she said, I'd still be open to letting you use all of my contacts in order to get your product cheaper.
Wow.
And so I was like, wow, that's awesome, But then it came down to my man, Damon John. And man, when he looked up and said, they're not going to let me back in the hood if I don't give you brothers a deal, I can't tell you I felt all the blood racing through my body because I saw it about to happen.
Listen, that was a FUBU moment from Damon. That was a for us, by us.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And so, it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And then, to leave the tank and to be able to celebrate and go back and call my family and share the experience with them. It was unbelievable. And life-changing. And really, I hope in the end,
on getting your deal with Damon John.
Thank you so much. It was life-changing. All glory to God. All glory to God, really.
Yes, indeed. So I'm sure everyone wants to know now how they can order a YoNo clip or book the Science Machine.
Awesome. That's a blessing. You can get your YoNo clip at YoNoClip.com. That's YoNO clip.com. And you can book the Science Machine at michael@scienceforeveryone.com. That's my email address. Or you can go to scienceforeveryone.com. That's my website. And it's Science for Everyone. It's not spelled out numerically. It's just the number one. And you can reach me that way. And I'd love to come talk to your scholars and inspire them and teach them a little bit of science along the way.
Michael, thank you again for joining me and for sharing so much of your incredible story with us today. For those of you watching, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to drop down in the description box and grab that resource on the engineering design process. We want to help cultivate many more Michael Greens, and that's not limited to male children, okay? We want to inspire many future inventions, just like what we've heard about here today. Also, the link to my website is in the description box, drmarquitablades.com. Please like this video, subscribe to the Powerful Teaching channel, follow me on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest. I am Powerful Teaching, POWARRful, and on Twitter @PowerfulTeach. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you, Dr. Blades.